It's time to rip the cover off what really works to ditch addiction, depression, anger, anxiety, and all other kinds of human suffering. No, not sobriety. We're talking the F word here, freedom. We'll share straight from the trenches what we've learned from leaving our own addictions behind and coaching hundreds of others to do the same. And since it's such a heavy topic, we might as well have a good time while we're at it. All right, guys, welcome back to the Alive and Free podcast. Last week, I promised you that we were going to talk about your number one priority today. We were going to talk about the choice and commitment to joy, but I'm calling an audible on that. We're going to do that a little bit later because it goes in connection with the addiction myth, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks. So today I wanted to call an audible and talk about something that's actually come to the forefront here recently, but that's exceptionally powerful. Whether or not the body that you have or that I have is a problem or a possibility. See, most of the time when you're dealing with addiction, when you're dealing with life, this comes up all the time. We talk about desires of the flesh. We talk about age and ailments and all kinds of stuff. And we have this negative view of the body as if, well, when we're young, it's this amazing thing. But then when we get older, it's a problem. And when you're inside of addiction, it's even worse. And there's all these diseases and other stuff and neurochemicals and all this stuff that like the body is this massive hurdle. And I want to just have you consider the possibility today that what if we're all wrong about that? What if the body is actually your greatest tool in personal growth and spiritual development that you could ever have possibly gotten on the planet? Better than any coach, better than any program, better than anything, if you know how to use it. So here's the deal. Some time ago, I'm going to share you a couple stories. A couple years ago, I was sitting talking to a guy that I really admire and respect. He's been around a long time, closely connected with our family. And we were sitting there talking on the couch. I was in Mesa, Arizona at the time. He leans over to me because he sat down on the couch like, ah, and then nonchalantly looks over like this is 100% dyed in the wool, tried and true fact, nothing you can do about it. He looks over at me and goes, Bob, don't ever get old, man. And I said, what? What do you mean? He said, because when you get old, your body falls apart and things stop working and all this stuff starts to happen. And I had a little bit of a conversation with him where I challenged that concept somewhat, but I want to challenge it a little bit further. Here's what was going on in my mind. What are you talking about? Body falling apart is one problem. Getting older, meaning just being on the planet for more time, is a different thing entirely. And to say that getting older equals body falling apart, that seems to be a leap in logical reasoning. In fact, I have an article on my computer saved, folks, from 1933. I think it's in October of 1933 in the New York Times, where a man by the name of Li Qingyun makes the headlines. Now, here's a guy in China, dies. Reported age to the authorities is 197 years old. The Chinese authorities are going, this is not right. Somebody did some really poor calculations. 197, that's not possible. So they sent out two different investigative parties to try and get to the bottom of it, hoping that the consensus between the two of them, that we'll start to get to the facts. So off they go. They charge down and they chase down this guy's relatives, his former relations, his friends, his documents and records, everything they can try and figure out. And they dig it up and they come back with the results. Dear Chinese government, you were right. This man was not 197 years old. By all of our records and reckoning, he's actually 256 years old at the time of his death. Now, the age is not the only unique thing about this fellow. He was over 7 feet tall, somewhat of a giant of sorts, not the largest giant in the world, but somewhat of a giant. And for some reason, some people have this thought that the bigger you are, you don't live as long and stuff like that. Wrong. This man had 17 wives over the course of his life and some rather large number of children. Oh, but the only way to live that long is to be celibate, Bob. Wrong. He had spent the first 100 years of his life as an herbalist, gathering herbs in the mountains. Yes, he avoided cities at times and did meditative practices. You can look him up. There's books about him on Amazon.com. Li Qingyun, Lichingyun. And he has 8 brocades of each Li Qingyun and other kind of meditative practices, which I've studied over the years and stuff like that. But here's a guy that defies all odds. He got old but his body didn't fall apart. But we make the assumption that just because everyone else, well, I know, Bob, but like all my friends, when they get older, their body falls apart. Maybe that's just because they don't know how to separate the two and treat their body in a way that helps it. And then I'm not saying that if you have genetic inheritances and stuff, that those aren't, variables in the stew. But the reality is that's not the case. Your body is not the enemy. Being on the planet longer is not the problem. Not taking care of your body, that becomes the issue, right? By the same token, when people dive into addiction, they look at the body and they talk, especially in religious circles, they talk about the carnal lusts and the lusts of the flesh, and you need to bridle your passions because for some reason, your body is the problem. It is a stumbling block, not a stepping stone. It is something that you got here on this planet and you've got to deal with, because if you don't deal with this body right here, right now, it's over, folks. 100%. It's done. The body's going to lead you down into hell, or it's going to lead you down some rabbit hole and you'll never get out of. And you're just going to eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow you're going to die. And then at the next life, it's all over. And with that kind of viewpoint of the body, how it's evil and it needs to be covered up and all of these things that we say about it. And I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just telling you with the viewpoint that we have of the body, what tends to happen is that we miss the great possibility that is inside of it. So people come to me and they're like, I don't know, man, the problem is my body. And like, I just have to like bridle my passions and hold it in and resist temptation. And they look at everything in the body as temptation. But what if we're looking at it wrong? Oh no, I'm having lustful thoughts. Bob, you mean like you're a guy and your body said hi to a girl? That's normal, right? And if she doesn't say hi back and that ends the conversation, great. That was a great conversation. That's what usually happens. But if your body's still trying to say hi after she's gone, then maybe something else is afoot. Something else is going on. And the reality is, and we talked about this before, that the emotions and experiences you're having in your body are its reaction to your mind. It's responding there. So if rather than responding to reality as it is, your body is busy responding to some reality as you're making it up in your head, not consciously, then we have to assess the reality in your head. And that it's not the body's fault at all, but the mind's. If you or someone you know is looking to drop the F-bomb of freedom in your life, whether that's from addiction or depression and anxiety or just anything that's making you feel flat out stuck, but you have no clue how to shake it and just want help doing it, head on over to liberateaman.com and book a call where we can look at your unique situation and give you the roadmap you've been missing. What if you could look at the body as if it were like lights on the dashboard, people? When you go to your car, let's look at this clearly. And in fact, the more expensive the piece of equipment, the more you've invested into this piece of equipment, the more you tend to take care of it. My dad was a fighter pilot. Okay, that means when he went out to go fly his airplane, the first thing he did was a walk around of the airplane to make sure all systems were go, all systems were in check. Then he'd get in the cockpit and and if he's listening to this, he's probably going to tell me I got everything wrong. But I remember him telling me about this, right? They're checking all of the fluids and everything to make sure that the airplane's not going to fall out of the sky with great threat of imminent death. But so he'll do the walk around, then they'll sit in the cockpit, they'll fire up the engine, they'll check all the instrument panel, they'll check everything else, make sure everything's okay. He told me a couple of times where things weren't okay, but he had to get home. So he just said a prayer and a blessing on his plane, and it worked and it got him home, and that's great. But by and large, they're not going to let the plane leave the ground if it's not functional. That's why they have a maintenance crew. Then once they ascertain it's all functional, off they go, they fire up the engines, they take it off, they taxi to the runway, fire the afterburners, and off they go. That is a high precision instrument, and they take a lot of care to make sure it's in great functioning order before they work with it. Now, if any of the instrument panels are off, they're not going to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I hate this body, right? They're going to look at it as an indicator that there's something that they need to go and pay attention to. Now, if you have a car, we've invested less in a car and I'm more used to it and more comfortable with it, and so I don't pay attention to it as much. Instead of turning on a car and letting it idle for a little bit and the oil lubricate the entire engine before I just accelerate from 0 to 60 onto the freeway, we usually just turn it on and go. We don't warm up the engine that much, which means it can do some damage on the inside. But when we go to our car, how many of us actually do a walk around, check the tires and the tire pressure? How many of us check to see that the lights work or if there's any extra damages on it or any leaking or anything that's amiss? Most of the time, I don't. I just head out to the car, get in and go. I do pay attention to the tires now to a certain extent because I've had enough experience with them to like say, okay, well, I'm going to start paying attention to these. I don't pay attention to them as much as would probably be wise. And I turn it on and I check the gauges. Sometimes I don't check the gauges until I'm already down the road. But look, they have various lights on the dashboard. The door is ajar, the airbag is on, maintenance required, check engine light. There's like the back hatch is open. There's the oil is low, the gas is low, the lights are on. That's a thing. There's a bunch of different indicators on there. How far you've gone, all kinds of stuff in the car. And if any one of those lights is on, you don't sit there and be like, man, I hate this car, blah, 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 blah. Oh, some people maybe do. But most of us look at it and be like, oh, okay, there's something I need to pay attention to. Something that's going on under the hood that I wasn't aware of. It was happening without me seeing it. But fortunately, I have this light here that's telling me. And the instrument panel on the dashboard gives you a way to confidently work with your car, knowing that it's not going to just go kaput on you all at once because you're going to have early advanced warning signs. What if your body is the car that your mind is driving and the mind is the engine under the hood that you are driving? You're driving the car. The mind is the engine under the hood and your body is the car itself and the instrument panel, the vehicle through which you get to experience this life. So now if the lights go on, oh, I'm having an emotion, Bob. Oh, I'm having a lustful thought, Bob. Oh, I'm having like a really down day, Bob. Bob, like I'm having this addictive behavior going on and the car's going haywire. Chances are the car isn't just going to veer left suddenly unless something went on under the hood. It's not the car's fault that it's just suddenly veering left. It's not Herbie, although those were really good movies. Did you guys watch those? Herbie Rides Again. I loved those movies. We actually bought them and had our kids watch them a number of years back. Funny movies. Anyway, the car isn't a Herbie. It doesn't have a mind of its own. Seems like it sometimes, but you're in the driver's seat. So unless you're the one steering the wheel left, maybe something's caught in the steering mechanism. Maybe there's something going on under the hood in another place. And if you see a behavior that you don't like, whether it's addiction, whether it's like self-sabotage, whether it's laziness or procrastination, whether it's just whatever it is, if you catch an emotion that you don't like, depression, anxiety, if you're having suicidal thoughts, if you're just sad, if you're bored, people are like, Bob, boredom's not a bad emotion, but it's just boredom. I'm like, cool. Do you want to stay bored the rest of your life? Oh, well, no. Great. So obviously there's some part of you that doesn't think that it's beneficial. Because if you were happy and I asked you, do you want to stay happy the rest of your life? You'd be like, yeah. So clearly boredom isn't on your top 10 list of the ways I'd like to experience life. We could dig into boredom in another time, but for now, the emotion itself is an indicator. The behavior is an indicator. The thought is an indicator that something's going on under the hood that maybe you didn't see happen. Now, if the car's veering left and you remember driving over a squirrel, maybe you're going to have some sense of it. But if not, and it just starts doing it, you're going to have to go and investigate. And sometimes you have to take it to a mechanic. Oh no. Because they know more about how to drive these cars than you do. Enter the world of coaching, right? It's not to say that you couldn't figure it out. You couldn't get on YouTube. You couldn't look it all up. But, you know, your level of expertise is what it is. And what if there was somebody else that was really good at it and you could just, you know what? Can I get your help and shortcut this process? I don't want to be working on this car for the next 10 years and I got a business meeting to get to. So on and so forth, right? But your body is simply that, a reflection of what's going on in your mind. That's all it is, which means it's a grand possibility and a great stepping stone for you to be able to take what's happening in your life, tune into your body and have it tell you what's really going on in your mind. How you feeling today? I'm fine. Your mind says I'm fine, but you tune into your body and your body's like, bleh. Which means consciously you're trying to say I'm fine, but really in reality, something in your mind is like, dude, something is off. Your body is telling you that something is off. Likewise, you could sit there and be like, oh man, I'm like just kind of freaking out or something. But if you tuned into your body, you might find, like I have, especially recently, as I've stepped into new levels of freedom over the last several months than I've ever experienced before in my life. It's been amazing. And my mind was so used to freaking out about things that at a certain point I was like, I don't know, something's off. And then I sat down and I tuned into my body and I was like, wait a second. My body's actually fine. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm sitting at like an 8.5 probably. It just wants a little more physical work, but it feels great. So it's just my mind that's going haywire because it's so used to putting out fires that if it's not putting one out, it's like looking for another one to put out, or let's go create one just so it can put it out. But now I don't have to do that anymore. And I can just be at ease and happy in and of myself. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't tuned into my body. On top of that, there are ways that you can work with your body to enhance your perception, your ability, your skill sets. You can train your body to do certain things, and your body is a grand possibility for you to experience the depth of human life, the depth of what is possible here as a human being. So instead of sitting here and vilifying your body and hating it for how much weight it's putting on, what if it's putting on weight precisely because it's trying to tell you, hey, we got more energy here than we know what to do with, but we're saving it for a rainy day just in case. What if it's putting on weight because it's trying to protect you from something and you have some emotional scars and the body is creating padding because you're just afraid you're going to hurt someone else or someone else is going to hurt you mentally? And I've seen that happen many times, right? Oh man, I hate it. I have diabetes. What if the problem really is your body reflecting a dysfunction going on in your mind where you can't really savor the sweetness of life? There is a link between the two. That doesn't mean that you didn't inherit a predisposition toward it, but whether you can turn a gene on or turn a gene off in its expression has been widely researched and found to be like, well, really, it's really up for grabs. How well do you do it? And spontaneous remissions as a field of study is so huge and ample evidence to let any human being know that pretty much all you got to do is decide to live a little bit differently and your body will respond. Why? Because it's a grand possibility. It's giving you the opportunity to live life on your terms. But Bob, I try so much and my body just won't respond. It won't do certain things. Now, I don't know. I've never experienced Parkinson's disease. I've never experienced some of these more debilitating things later on in life. So I don't know what's possible in that arena. But could it be possible that your body is showing you what's really going on in your mind and that all the trying you're doing is just one part of what's happening? And that the real way out is to start to handle all of that internal stuff so that your body can express differently. I had a martial arts instructor a long time ago who I told him, look, my shoulders are hunched forwards a little bit. I'm so used to like hunching them forward and this, that, and the other. And he was pointing it out to me over and over the course of like 3 days in an intensive workshop. And he says, well, why are they hunched forward? I was like, I'm just afraid of getting hit. And he said to me, how about you handle the fear? And then your shoulders will correct themselves. It's an eye-opening moment. So as we wrap up today, and we're looking forward to what's going to happen next week, where I'm going to talk to you about the mind, whether it's mess or magic. As we wrap up today, I want you to just start asking yourself the question, what is my body really telling me about what's going on inside? And what would happen if I listened to it a little bit more and paid closer attention so that I could catch things earlier on and experience life a little bit differently? I'm here to tell you that your body is this amazing possibility. You came to Earth to get it. To qualify to be a human being, you have to have a body. And have you considered that maybe, just maybe, it's the greatest piece of technology on the planet? And maybe, just maybe, what is possible to experience within a human body hasn't even been scratched. Like the surface of it hasn't even been scratched by all human effort up to date. And maybe, just maybe, what you thought was your enemy can actually become your greatest friend. So that's a wrap for today. We'll talk next week, folks. And that's it for today's Alive and Free podcast. If you enjoyed this show and want some more freedom bombs landing in your earbuds, subscribe right now at wherever you get your podcasts from. And while you're at it, give us a rating and a review. It'll help us keep delivering great stuff to you. Plus, it's just nice to be nice.